So I'm going to use notes, and I'm going to choose to love myself despite of that fact. I'm a woman of many nicknames, and one of the most common ones to be assigned is Sunshine. I've been asked before, how can you be so happy all the time? The short answer, of course, is that I'm not. In fact, for the entirety of my life, I've had these tendencies to slip into a dark place, especially when things aren't going well. But what happens when you slip into that dark place and things are going well? In 2006, I had a series of life transitions take place within a very short period of time. In July, I got engaged. In August, I graduated with my master's in counseling and had a perfect GPA. The reason I chose to study counseling in the first place was the message that I had received growing up, which is, just be happy. I was fortunate enough to have parents and mentors over the years say, you don't have to worry about setting the world on fire. You don't need to focus on making a ton of money. Just do what makes you happy. And so I chose to become a counselor. After graduating in August, September rolled around. I moved in with my then fiance and celebrated my 30th birthday. These are all, by anyone's standards, positive changes. But unfortunately, the way I reacted was to plunge into despair. The reason for this was the belief that I had lost my identity. I moved out of the apartment where I had lived for the last 4 years and began inhabiting another person's space. I went from being a 20-something to a 30-something. I moved from being a single woman to someone's future wife. And I moved from being a student within the structured environment of steadily working toward my hopes and dreams to the ambiguity of unemployment. The issue wasn't that my life was terrible, quite the opposite. But the space in between who I was and who I was becoming was vacuous and tumultuous. We hear about the importance of living in the present moment. And we learn that life is a series of present moments, lived to the fullest. But what happens when the present moments you're experiencing feel excruciating for seemingly no good reason? I became difficult for others to tolerate. Even I didn't like being around me. Days would go by in October when the weather was perfect outside, kind of like now. And I couldn't mobilize myself to enjoy it. My fiance would come home from work each day, find me collapsed in a pit of despair, and try to help by asking me, so what did you do today? How many jobs did you apply for? Did you reach out to that person that I asked you to contact? And of course, my answers were not what either one of us had hoped for. The truth is that I started out applying for jobs, but after the first few rejections and absences of responses altogether, I found myself making excuses not to even attempt. The truth is that I stopped trying, not out of laziness, but because my own murky sense of identity left me believing that I had nothing to offer. Some people even told me, as an attempt at consolation, that it didn't really matter if I found work. After all, my future husband worked for Dell, and he could always take care of me. But I wanted to make a bigger impact using my knowledge, skills, and education, not just to be the recipient of another person's support. So how did I pull out of this? By using some techniques that now, as a career coach, counselor, and life transition therapist, I use with my clients to help them effectively navigate life transitions to achieve success. I started keeping journals, writing everything from raw and honest expressions of sadness, anger, and despair to experiments about what worked and what didn't. One thing that didn't work, not surprisingly, was being hard on myself and beating myself up over things I meant to do but didn't. Another thing that didn't work was being told by well-intentioned individuals that I had no right to feel sorry for myself because I was so blessed. I didn't have any real problems, and so I should just get over it. Rather than being helpful, hearing and internalizing these messages reinforced my own sense that I was a spoiled, ungrateful human being, and that caused me to spiral downward even further. Things that did work were being told by my friends, I love you, I'm here for you, and if you ever want to talk, just let me know. Other things that helped were attending yoga classes, going for walks in the beautiful October weather, and giving myself credit for even the tiniest things I achieved. Rather than beating myself up over what I intended to do but didn't, I focused on completing even the smallest steps forward. Some days, it was a miracle to even get out of the house at all. Even stepping outside to get the mail or taking time to shower, get dressed, and brush my teeth were tiny things that felt like huge accomplishments. I started doing volunteer work, which forced me out of the house, gave my life more structure, and most importantly, provided a sense of perspective that things could be a lot worse. I kept a gratitude journal, listing 5 things each day that were going well in my life. And on some of those days, the list included things like, I brushed my teeth today. Another huge thing that worked was practicing self-compassion and accepting that the occasional lack of happiness is not a tragedy, but it's an inevitable, even welcome part of life. Rather than succumbing to the feeling of life having no purpose, I projected several years into the future and asked myself, what am I learning from this experience? And after a few months of practicing these habits, I started to pull out of the funk. The answer that came to me throughout this experience was that navigating my own life transitions would enable me to help clients do the same. The biggest gift that came from learning to pull myself out of this dark place was empathy. I now have the clarity to know that my own life's purpose is to help others pull through difficult times in their lives. The gift of depression and of learning to overcome it is the ability to meet clients where they are and to say with authenticity, I get it. I've been through times when people told me I should be happy, but wasn't, and it turned out okay. I learned to quiet my critical inner voice enough to accept and create my own survival mechanisms, and so can you. You don't have to be happy all the time. And accepting that fact is, ironically, what will likely lead you to happiness. If you or someone you love is struggling with a transition, there's no need to go it alone. There are tools, resources, techniques, and people to help. And if you ever want to talk, just let me know. Thank you.